I'm here tonight because you wanted me to be.
I'm glad you came, because I think you're gonna like it. Let's get nuts!
You are so twisted.
Let's face it, you're a knockout.
The Encyclopedia Galactica, in its chapter on love, states that it is far too complicated to define. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has this to say on the subject of love. Avoid, if at all possible.
All right, there you go. Good evening to the Bahamas and the world. Of course, it's After Hours with yours truly, Sexy Vanessa. You know, we got Tino, the producer, in the place, making sure the show goes smoothly. And I gotta say, so far, it has. Yeah, man, we've been having a great time. Of course, today's show is being brought to you by the Laugh My Ass Off Island Comedy Experience. It all goes down May 20th. That's the holiday weekend, okay? Like Whit Monday or something, which I'm still not sure why that's a holiday, but we're gonna enjoy it nonetheless. It's going down right here in Nassau, Bahamas at St. John's College Auditorium. And of course, the Caribbean King of Comedy, Major Hype, is going to be in the place, so you don't want to miss it. Hit us up on Facebook for more information, or of course, you can check out Bahamani events, all right? Yeah, man, my boy Ken Ferguson doing big things, so support the vibe, all right? As we say, the vibe is the thing. And of course, Ken listens to the show, so you know I am going to be out there supporting, and it's going to be an incredible night of comedy. Rip Michaels from MTV, he's going to be there as well. And yeah, it's just going to be great. Naughty's making an appearance, Get Off King. So yeah, man, come and get off, as they say, right? Of course, speaking of incredible nights, you know, this is now episode 3. And I'm like so proud of us. I'm very proud of Tino as well. Tino is doing wonderful things. He is, listen, I know I'm funny, right? But Tino is the reason that the whole thing can happen, okay? So again, big special thank you to him and Street King Records. And of course, I have to say a big thank you to all of our fans and our friends. And, you know, everyone who's just showing us so much support. Now, I didn't say family. You notice I didn't say family, right? Okay, I got a bone to pick, y'all, all right? Yeah, man, I doing it like this. Listen, my sister, okay? She was by us this week. And I was just telling Tino about this because I'm a little hurt, all right? I'm a little hurt. She's by us and she's, like, listening to Dave Chappelle. And don't get me wrong, I love Dave Chappelle. I think he's really funny, right? But this woman has yet to listen to the show. And I am like, hello, like your whole sister has a show and you're just like not. And she's like, oh, and it, you know, it doesn't play. But I must say, you know, all the people who have been listening on SoundCloud, YouTube, and everywhere else, they seem to get it to play. So I don't know what she's telling me, but I tell you what, I'm calling her out on this episode. And so we'll definitely know if she listens or not, right? Yeah, if she never says anything about this, then we know what's really going on, man. But so many other people, of course, have shown us a lot of love. And so again, thank you so much. And what was so great this week was that as people were listening to episode 2, which was the psychology of sex, I actually noticed the stats for episode 1 going up as well, which means that obviously people were liking what they heard and going back to listen to the first episode as well, which was really cool. And so hopefully I'll keep giving you that pleasure, you know. That sounded very naughty, didn't it? That's okay. It could be naughty. It's funny though. Every time I hear pleasure, you know, I think about Atlantis. Because every time, like, you can always tell when somebody's worked at Atlantis because when they're on the phone, they're like, my pleasure. And it's like, you worked at Atlantis. Because nobody's that pleased to be at work. Like, I swear to God, nobody could be that pleased, man. But I love to hear it. It's always very nice and professional, of course. And of course, if you'd like to hear our show, you can give us a follow on SoundCloud. And last week, I made a promise, right? I said we would be on iTunes as well. And guess what? We are. Yes, we are officially on Apple Podcasts. That's iTunes for those of you who didn't put that together. And like I said, also on SoundCloud and YouTube as before. And now on, are you ready? Because it's like a long list of apps. Are you ready? We're also on Stitcher, Spreaker, Acast, Pocket Cast, Castbox, Podcast Republic, Player FM, Podcast Addict, Podbean, Overcast, and a few more. All right, we're actually waiting on TuneIn, which is a big one as well. So again, no reason for you not to keep up. Find us on your favorite podcast app, and got to send a special hello to another podcast, actually, the IMDb Journey, right? They do movie reviews, and I listened to them on Spreaker. They actually listened to a review of Django, right? Because I was like, listen, if they mess up the Django review, then I know like it's not worth it. But it was awesome, man. They're actually Aussies, which was really cool. And yeah, we've been chatting like on Twitter, so make sure you guys check them out, the IMDb journey. And of course, speaking of Aussies, a special good day, mate, to all of our international listeners. And I actually understand, it's cooling down in Australia right now because they're actually about to go into winter as we're about to go into summer. But even here, even though it's hot, like ridiculously hot the last 2 days, in general it has been a lot cooler than usual. And I mentioned my boy Ken earlier, he's from New York or living in New York, and they've had some crazy weather too. As a matter of fact, earlier in the week they had this like flash flood warning that like came over their phones, and everyone was complaining, man. They said it was like this crazy loud noise that woke them up at budgem o'clock. And it's that spring weather. They did have some flooding, so I guess some people were glad for the alert while others were annoyed. But this time of year, it marks the end of cuffing season. Okay, for those of you who don't know, cuffing season is that time of year when you want to be cuffed, all right? At least for the northern hemisphere. I guess in the southern hemisphere they're just going into cuffing season, right? It's that time that you need a live blanket. Now you see, when it gets to be like 80 degrees in the night, bruh, ain't no live blanket needed, okay? You need this like the spring fling time. What do we call it? I shouldn't say that word again. I'm gonna say it. Fucking duck, okay? That's what it is. That's the time it is. That's what people. Nobody wants to be next to people this kind of time. It's hot. It's very hot. Like, who wants to be all jammed up, man? That's what it is. And I think it's affecting people, man. I think people are getting rid of girlfriends and boyfriends. You know what I mean? People talking about bikini bodies and that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's what it's about. So I've changed my wardrobe a bit, in honor of the. I don't know, the weather is strange. It's still cool some nights, but generally speaking, it's a lot more humid than it was. And so in addition to my wardrobe, actually, this week I was feeling myself, so I changed my playlist too. And I will tell you this, I am not the trendiest person. Like Big L always says, I'm kind of like late on things. But this week, because I was feeling so great about the podcast, I was like, I'm going to catch up and I'm going to get some really positive music going. And I have to say, 2 songs really caught my eye or my ear this week. Well, a few, but 2 in particular that I want to talk about. For those of you who have listened to the previous episodes, it's kind of like this thing I'm doing at the beginning of the show where, I like to talk about an entertainer who has made it, easier for me and hopefully easier for others as well. And I was hoping to like keep it on the female thing, but these guys, like, I listened to that song Nice for What by Drake and the song Proud by 2 Chainz with YG and, oh Lord, what man name is? YG and Offset, right? From Migos. And I gotta say, man, these dudes, they really, in my opinion, they kind of did something different that, a lot of rap songs don't do. I mean, a lot of people are always talking about rap music and how it demeans women. And I think that those people don't understand the culture because, I mean, Tupac explained it really well in that song, like, Wonder Why They Call You Bitch. Like, he explained that it's a cap fits kind of situation. It's not that they're talking about all women, you understand? And I think that these songs kind of demonstrated that, especially the song Proud, because, the song says, I just want to make my mama proud. I'm not trying to let my mama down, right? And then it's like, my mama ain't raised no hoe. And it's like, oh, everybody get excited at that part because Tina's looking at me like, why are you so... like, I'm dead excited because, I don't know, it was just... like, you're used to hearing power anthems like that, I guess, from female entertainers and female artists. But when you actually hear the guys bigging up women and saying, not bigging up as in bigging up for the Bahamians, right? Here, bigging up means getting pregnant. That's not what I meant. When you hear them, bigging up in terms of, putting them on a pedestal, rightfully so, in the right place. And, giving the right accolades to them for all the hard work that they do as mothers and everything else, it stands out, man. So... yeah, man, I was digging that. And I gotta say, the Drake song, Nice for What? It's just a feel-good song. It's like, you gotta be nice for what? Like, do you, girl? And so I'm all about that. So big shout out to Drake and 2 Chainz, YG, and Offset from Migos. Kudos to them this week. And of course, that does bring us to our topic. Yes, speaking of my mama ain't raised no hoe. This will be talking about tonight. No, not hoes. We're talking about no strings attached. All right? Yeah. Listen, we were talking about last week the psychology of sex and kind of where we've distinguished the difference between pleasure and purpose and all of this. And before we like dive really deep into this subject, I want us to set some bounds, or at least some definitions for things, right? So, and the reason I'm doing this is really because there are a lot of different definitions and terms for these so-called non-relationships that are truly relationships, but people just don't want to call them that. Like, I don't know. It's like, okay, perfect example, right? Talking to someone the other day, and they're trying to say what they're looking for in life, and they're like, they're not looking for a relationship right now. But then they went on to say how, like, they want to be intimate, they want to go out sometimes, right? And, and only deal with one person. And then I was like, well, isn't that a relationship? Tina, am I crazy? Because that's a relationship, right? Am I confused? It's like all of that sounded like a relationship to me. Like, I don't know at what point the dude figured it wasn't. But again, the psychology of sex, like, what's really going on? What are people thinking, right? So for this, no strings attached. Let's apply the following definitions, all right? No strings attached is going to be just that. No strings attached. The Pinocchio effect is what I called it last week. I got no strings to hold. You remember I sang the song? Okay, if you don't remember, go back and listen. It was a great rendition. But no, you're a real boy now. You understand? You've got no strings. Like, nothing tying you down. Absolutely free, all right? It is not friends with benefits. That's not what we're talking about, because then you would have to be friends. And to me, friends care about each other. You know what I'm saying? It's not dating, which may or may not be intimate, but obviously entails some sort of relationship beyond the sexual encounter, right? And it's also not going, as Bahamians say, which I guess comes from going steady, which would signify a steady, committed relationship. It's just what it is. No strings attached. Someone with whom you basically just, like, you're juicing, okay? That's what we can say. You're having sex with this person, and that's really what it's all about, right? Now, the best you may get out of that is, what do they call it? Netflix and chill? Yeah, like, I think you could get a Netflix and chill out of a no strings attached situation, because, it's like, Nishi in the group, big shout out to the After Hours 242 groups, Facebook, and definitely on WhatsApp. But my girl Nishi in the group, she said, what is my deal, right? And when she was listening to the podcast, she said, what is my deal with talking about other things before I get to, like, talking about the sex, right? Because she's like, isn't the podcast about sex and, love and life and relationships? And I'm like, yeah, but you gotta ease in sometimes. So I think even with a no strings attached situation, I think you might be able to, like, get a Netflix and chill, or like a drink or something, but you ain't going nowhere for it, okay? It's, like, really contained, if you understand what I'm saying, right? You're not claimed, you don't go out on dates, and in fact, to be honest, you may barely even speak to each other outside of communicating to arrange that rendezvous, right? Okay. Now, in the words of 2 Chainz, again, my mama ain't raised no hoe. And I will admit to having displayed possibly some hoe-like tendencies in the past. Once or twice. I think everyone has had that moment, you understand? But overall, right? Let's be real. Like, when you hit 30... And for me, I've told you before, I'm 33 going on 34. You start to look at things a little differently, and things that you may have let slide or slide in the past. You understand? it just can't go so no more. Oh Lord, Tino blushing. Okay, you can't let it slide no more. It can't work because you're older now. You understand, and you want something different, right? And I mean, let's be honest, we claim that we get swung in life, right? But I've said it before. Yes, sometimes, you get swing. But in truth, a lot of times we are party to that deception. I mean, as I said before, we say things just happen, but most times it's a series of events that led to a point. And if we've been completely honest with ourselves, we can admit that, yeah, we probably saw that coming, right? Now, this whole no strings attached thing, I will say this. I have a certain level of respect, right? Not all respect in the world, but I have a certain level of respect, right? For the person who approaches with this, because it seems that they're honest to a point, right? Like, they letting you know up front, look, yeah, ain't nothing happening, right? They're not selling you any dreams. There's no, big fanciful story. Like, no, it's just is what it is. And that part, I can respect. The honesty, I can respect. But ultimately, I have to say I'm a little bit concerned about the emotional health of the person, because I have yet to understand how a person just completely removes emotion and spiritual connection from sex. I don't get, like, I mean, listen, sex is a spiritual event. I mean, at least when I do it, I don't know how y'all maybe y'all ain't doing it right? That could be a whole nother issue. But it's a spiritual event, right? This is supposed to be something that's deep. I mean, it's literally the most intimate connection you can have on earth, beyond your connection with God. Like, it is, man. This is a mind-blowing, universe rotating type stuff. And how people just remove the emotion from that, I don't get it. It's a spiritual exchange that's truly designed to create a bond. And so no strings attached is just a prime example of what we were talking about last episode with the psychology of sex and the concept of pleasure as separated from purpose, right? Now, when it comes to men, we understand that, yes, most times it's a physical endeavor, and some of the ladies have said as much for themselves. But I think that there's something deeper at play in our psyche, especially for us women who have agreed, or even in some cases brought up these terms, because I mean, I understand, I didn't believe it at first, right? But I understand that there are women who will just be like, nah, that's all I want from you. Just do. And it's like, I guess, again, Lauryn Hill told us about it, that thing. Maybe that was the thing for some of them too. You know what I mean? It's a serious situation. But I think there's something else going on, because we talked about the whole Adam and Eve thing last week in the garden, right? And again, part of our curse as women is to long for our husband. Now, yes, there are women out there, like my good friend in the group, who say they don't want to be married. And that's cool. I understand that. We'll talk about marriage and what that means too, because again, we're talking about married in terms of what, I guess, the legal system says marriage is, and you got to go get this paper and blah, 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 right? But I have yet to meet a woman who wants to be alone, okay? Like, she may not want to be married, but ain't no woman out there like, oh, you know what? I just want to be alone. Like, no. Even women who wind up alone don't seem to want to be that way, because they either buy cats or they like befriend the nearest liquor store, right? They become a lush, right? Like, I don't think there's a woman out there that would truly say within themselves that, yes, I just want to be alone. You know what I mean? But again, with the men, I think I get it. I think the men are kind of after the physical satisfaction without the responsibility that comes with the girlfriend or the wife or the family, right? They're being cheap, basically. Yeah, I said it. They're being cheap. And I don't mean just with money. It's not about that. When I say cheap, I mean like emotionally and physically cheap. Let me explain that for you, right? Lazy would maybe be another word for it. Basically, these men who agree to this or who would propose this, they want the sexual benefits that at one point were reserved for a married man without having to expend, or with only having to expend, a portion of the time, money, and effort that is required to have an ongoing, committed relationship, okay? Is a quick thing. They don't want all that responsibility, right? He wants to have sex and not have to text you good morning, basically, right? And not have to get riled for it, all right? Like, just not think about you until the next time he has sex or wants to have sex again, right? Like, I get that. I could see where those guys are coming from, okay? That makes sense. And can't say it makes good sense, but it makes sense, right? Nah, I mean, because, think about it. It's really, all the person is saying to you is, listen, I want to be on the peripheral of your life, okay? I don't want to meet your family. I don't want to be a part of your daily life. I don't want to hear, what's going on with you and your kids and your this and your that and your job. Like, I don't care. All I want to know is that when I call you, we meet up and we do, okay? Now, fellas, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Please, by all means, you can check us out on social media, right? You can go ahead, check us out on Facebook, on Twitter as well, After Hours 242. And I have no problem engaging in this conversation. As a matter of fact, I very much like to engage in this conversation, because I think that's what the no strings attached situation is all about, right? Again, for the women, though, I think something else is going on, because I think that if anybody should be against that, I think the women should be against it, right? Because it's usually us who trying to get the strings. Like, we want to be attached. We want to be married. We want to be with someone. And that's why I say that there has to be something else going on with our mindset. Now, I think I kind of figured it out. And a part of this came from some reflection that I had to do myself some years ago. And stick with me here, right? I'm gonna bring this around. But when you talk about no strings attached, right? You have to realize that you're basically talking about women agreeing to the thing that I would say we as women complain about the most, which is being used or valued only as sexual beings, or primarily for our sexual, prowess. That's what you're after. So that's why I say something else has to be going on, because at the end of the day, why would we accept that if it's inherently a part of our nature to do the very opposite, right? What happened there, right? Okay. Now, this is what I reflected on, came to. Again, let me know what you think. I personally, I've never been about the whole no strings attached situation. And that's really just because I'm very communicative. Like, I can need to hear from you, okay? Like, even if it's a friends with benefits kind of thing, I can need to hear from you. It ain't no way that me and you can have sex today and then, like, you're not gonna say anything for, like, days. Like, no, hi, hello, how you doing? Did you eat? Are you okay? Like, no, that's not gonna work. No, Sexy Vanessa needs to talk. As you can see, I talk a lot. You all realize that on this show, I'm talking for a whole hour by myself. I talk a lot, okay? So I've never really been into that part because I need more than that in terms of the communication. But at the end of the day, if you only call for sex, or if you're trying to set up a situation with me where you're only going to call for sex, that feels more like a service, okay? And we talked about that before, okay? When I say a service, yes, I mean a paid service. That's what it sounds like. It's the same thing that I talked about when we were saying with the phone sex and the cyber sex. There's a paid service, bro, okay? And you're cutting an industry short. There are people who do this for a living. And if that's all you want, by all means, get your wallet and go seek them out, okay? But that's not the business that I'm in, all right? And I don't feel like doing anybody else's job, to be honest with you, okay? So don't come this way with that, right? But I will confess to being, a friend with benefits a few times. And I think with friends, again, I can understand that a little bit more, because even though friends with benefits will say they don't want anything to happen and they're just going to keep it friendly, I think most times at least one party hopes that at some point in the future, it will develop into something more, right? Because again, if you're friends, that means you genuinely like this person as an individual, and the sex is just the benefit, right? That's the distinguishing part from the no strings attached. But with no strings attached, I actually, in reflecting, I kind of coupled this to like dating someone who's married. And I know you're thinking, whoa, that's like completely two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? But let me show you why I say that. And let me go back, right? Because I know you're thinking, okay, what does she know about dating? Yes, I've dated someone who's married before, and y'all don't get on your high horse, okay? Because at the end of the day, all these men sweethearting, they sweethearting somebody, okay? And they ain't sleeping with me. So I don't know. Some of y'all out there gotta be sleeping with some married men, right? And I'll be honest with you, I think we're gonna do an episode on the lies too, right? But I think that's one of the things that women actually lie about a lot. I think that women lie just a lot about having ever been with a married man. And I think partners in general, so we will talk about that. But when I was 18, I dated a married guy. And of course, I asked myself later, why was I so comfortable being with this man? Because now in my 30s, that's like, no, bro, I want something that's mine. If you ain't mine, if I can't go anywhere with you, if you can't come on, dates or whatever and go out and go here and there and be in the public with me, then no, I ain't about that life. So, I have asked myself as I've grown older, why was I so comfortable with that situation? And in fact, I did another married guy. Lord, I'm bad, Let's confess everything, right? But no, I dated another married guy in my 20s, and don't get me wrong, right? Like I said, we'll do an episode on the lies, and I think we're also going to do an episode on why men cheat, because I have some very different viewpoints on this. I think that it's a broad generalization when we say that, all men are dogs, or men that cheat are dogs. You'd be surprised at why some men cheat, and some of them, the reasons that they give would almost seem noble on the surface. Yeah, I know you're like, what? Listen, we'll talk about it in another episode, right? But I digress. Either way, I asked myself what made me so comfortable with these situations. And I realized that it was actually something very, very simple. I knew what to expect. Okay, let me say that again. I knew what to expect. As humans, we fear the unknown. And every new relationship, when you're with someone who's single and it's like, okay, are we going to try something, do something? It just presents a myriad of unknown possibilities. You know, it's like, will it work out? Will she get pregnant? Will he marry me? You know, is she a low-key thought? Is he faithful? Is he straight? Like, oh my God, right? Like, listen, ever since Oprah did that show about living on the down low, like back in the 90s, that's been a question, right? And it's a serious thing. So every time you meet somebody, now all of a sudden you have all of these questions in your mind, all of these unknowns, and they just loop in your head, you know? You're very suspicious of the whole situation. And it becomes tiresome, you know, as you get older and you've been through different relationships, it gets tiring having to meet a new person and having to wonder these things and having to wonder, is it going to work out and this and that? And the thing is, with a married person, I shouldn't just say a married person, anytime that you date someone who is not yours, right? Meaning that they have somebody else that they claim and you all are not public with your relationship, you don't face the same unknowns that you do in a typical relationship. You just don't. In fact, it's quite the opposite. There are certain things that you are absolutely 100% sure of, okay? Like, so sure. And again, this is weird, right? Because you're thinking, well, but do you want to be sure of those things? You know, sometimes security of any kind feels better than no security, if you understand what I'm saying, right? For instance, you don't concern yourself with whether or not the person is faithful, right? Yeah, because infidelity isn't an issue. They're already cheating on their other person with you. So like, you already know they're sleeping with somebody else. So you're not even thinking about that the same way, right? Another thing, you don't wonder if it's going to work out. Because it ain't. Like, you're with this person only, again, for what it is at the time, right? You know, it's one of those things, you know, they're not going to call at certain times. You know, they're not going to show up to important moments. You know, you're not going to be invited to important moments. You know, all these things that we wonder about and these little milestones that occur to kind of give us a sense of positioning in a relationship and let us know whether a relationship is progressing or not. They all become non-factors because they're not going to happen, right? Now, you're saying, okay, well, again, what good is that? But the good is that you have a very strange, twisted, completely out of place, but very real peace of mind because you're not the one on the defensive, okay? When you just meet someone and you're trying to get into a relationship with them or you've gotten into a relationship with them, you're the one on the defensive. You're the one wondering what the secrets are. When you're on the other side, you don't play that role, all right? When I was in my 20s, if you had asked me if I wanted to be the wife that was lied to or the sweetheart, I would have always told you the sweetheart because at the end of the day, honesty to me was always paramount. And I always thought to myself, I don't want to be the person that's lied to, right? Because I don't want to go to jail. You understand? If I find out that that dude is cheating on me, like, I'm a hurt brother. You understand? And that's like, listen, I used to tell people, black folks only kill once. We don't do that whole serial killer thing. No, and I still got one opening left. You understand? So I don't want nobody playing with my feelings, man. You understand? And I always took that. Tina's like, what? Oh my God. Like, let me not hook her up with anybody, right? Anyhow, but that's always how I felt about it, man, because it never feels good to wonder, right? And I realize now, right, that all of this, it just comes from fear, okay? That's all it really is. Sweethearts think they're winning because they know the truth. But at the end of the day, I don't think that that's winning. It's the same for no strings attached. I think persons, women in particular, feel as though they're winning or safeguarding themselves by essentially lowering their expectations, right? Though we never admit that. But think about it. You're like accepting, basically you're taking it and saying, okay, it's not going to work out and it is going to be a situation where you only use me for sex. So let's just get to the sex and only do that. That's basically what it is, right? We're shielding ourselves like from heartbreak and disappointment by accepting defeat from the beginning, and then we call this a win. And you know, it's a really twisted psyche because we say we're getting what we want, and as they say here in the Bahamas, you know, exchange is no robbery, but we forget that sex isn't simply a physical act, right? Whether you admit it or not, whether it feels like it or not, whether you're doing it right or not, when you have sex, you're either contributing or taking away from your emotional cup. Okay, and we talked about this emotional cup before, and we all have an emotional cup. Again, and Jan Levenzon says, what's in the cup is for you, what flows out of the cup is for others. My cup runneth over. So that emotional energy, that is yours to guard, right? You have to be careful, because when you exchange energy, you can't just give it away. If you give it away, and no one is giving back into your life, you're going to wind up with an empty emotional cup, right? Okay. The contribution, right, that you have with someone isn't necessarily happening at the point of sex, but rather the overall energy that this person brings into your life. Okay, a person who's only and truly only interested in sex, meaning like no strings attached, they're only coming for what they can take and not for what they can give. This is why I define the difference between the no strings attached and the friends with benefits situation, because I do honestly believe it's different. It's not the same thing, mind you, not to say that friends with benefits is an ideal situation either, but at least when you have friends with benefits and you are actual friends, the sex itself can be an affirmation of that relationship, right? It can be something that strengthens the relationship when you are truly friends. If this is, and when I say friends, I'm talking like, would this person come to see you if you were in the hospital? Like, are they going to come pick you up if you're stranded in the middle of the night? They going to like lend you a few $100s or, whatever is within their station in life. I mean, these are the things. Do they listen to you when you vent or when you cry without being all judgmental and impatient? Do they genuinely support you in your endeavors? Because that's another thing. And I'm speaking of calling people out, I'm not going to call any names. But even for me with this venture with the podcast, it's been very interesting to see where the support comes from and where it doesn't. Like you got people that'll be all up in your DM trying to talk with you. But boy, if you ask them if they listen to the show, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are not friends. You understand what I'm saying? Those people do not qualify as your friends. But if the person is willing to, like, and for some of the guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, and again, I was talking about the playlist earlier, right? One of the songs on it right now is Roll in Peace, Kodak Black, right? And Kodak was talking about it because clearly he's all in his feels on this song because this girl was not there for him. Like, I don't know who this girl was, but she was not there for Kodak when he was in jail. He's like even the blind could see you ain't gonna ride for me, and that's a serious thing, So the person is going to look out for you, if the person is going to be there, in a time of need, whether that be, financial, emotional, whatever, then that's different, right? That you can say is a friend and may qualify as a friend with benefits once you, cross into that intimate area. And at that point, again, the sex can affirm the relationship that is. Now, we're not talking morality or whether you should be sleeping with the person or not sleeping with them. We're just talking about what the physical act, which is truly a spiritual act, what it reinforces in an intimate relationship, okay? On the other hand, if someone is only with you for what they can get from you, then the sex is going to affirm that feeling of usury, if you will, that feeling of being objectified. And that could be for men as well, because again, the guys say there are women out there that are just like, I just want to do. There are women out there that are maybe only doing to do for the money in your pocket, which likewise, I don't know if that really feels great as a man. Like, does it feel good being in that situation, knowing that the woman is only doing it because of the money? Like, I mean, I'm sure you can still get where you're going. If not, prostitution wouldn't be a thing, right? But like, I wonder if that's an emotional issue, especially for the guys that are more so in tune with themselves and their emotional side, In fact, I would even go so far as to liken it to submission versus domination. Now, we as women have been instructed to submit to our husbands. And if a man is good to a woman that loves him, she will feel naturally submissive, okay? There will be no need to control that woman. If a woman loves you and you're good to her, she is like all you, bro. She is after whatever you're into. She will die for you. She will have your children. She will build your legacy. She will do all of that, right? On the other hand, a man that has to control a relationship, he gives off an air of domination, and this will overflow into his sex life. Now, you may be saying, I hear you out there, oh, but I like a dominant man. And sweetie, I do too, right? Right? But it's levels to this ish, right? Who's that? Is that Meek Mill or somebody? I don't know. Yeah, it's levels, right? Okay, so let's talk about these levels, right? If he's dominant because you're submissive, then that's great. There's no problem with that. That's natural, right? If he's dominant because he's selfish, and God help you if you've ever had a selfish lover, not a great experience, right? If he's selfish in your relationship or non-relationship or situationship, as some call it, right, is really only based on what he can get, then you're going to feel that during sex, even though you may try to block it out at first. I mean, I really fully, truly believe that spiritually, whether, like I said, whether you're blocking out, whether you're desensitized, whether you're numb to it, spiritually, you are still being affected. And I think that that's the point that a lot of women get to, where, you know, you think that, okay, maybe friends with benefits is cool, or you think that being in no strings attached situations are cool. But as you get older and you've kind of connected yourself with people, you get to a point where you realize, like, hey, I deserve some strings, okay? Like, this no strings attached situation, bruh, sorry for you, but it ain't for me. I deserve strings. I don't want to be sexual with you because you demand it or because it's some sort of arrangement. I want to be sexual with you because you deserve it, right? I want to be sexual with you because I feel that you deserve my submission, if you understand where I'm coming from. I want to find you worthy of that. And that's really important. I think that's the part of it that's really being missed. Men, as I understand, hate women that are only after their money. And so again, I think if we draw this illustration, right, we may be able to better understand the situation as a whole. And we said it last week. Your sex is money. Tino's sex is money, right? His sex been money all week, right? Pimping Tino out. All right, listen. No, if sex is money, right? And again, as a matter of fact, let me give you a different illustration here. I heard this joke, right? Again, my sister watching other people online and not listening to my show. But either way, this was good. And I don't know the comedian. I will look it up. I will ask her again. But if you've heard the bit, by all means, do comment. But this guy, you know, he was talking about how this woman told him that, you know, women are just as horny as men, and that women want sex, you know, and they need sex just as bad as men. And he's like, no. He's like, no, he doesn't believe it. And she was like, yeah. And he's like, no. And then he went on to explain how when he was a teenager, he always looked a little bit older, I guess, than he was. And so he was the one that all his friends would give their money to and their orders to, like, go to the porn store. And we talked about these, like, XXX stores before, right? In the States. I don't know I think we have one or two here, but I don't think they're, like, on the level, like, the state. Definitely not on the level of this story, as far as I know. And once you hear the story, you're going to hope not, right? Either way, so he talks about how he goes to the store, and the people get used to seeing him. And he's like, you know, he's walking through there with, like, a list. Looks like he's grocery shopping in the porn shop. And the guy says to him this one day, he's like, hey, you know, I know of this other store, and I think you'd really like it, you know? And he said he thought it was strange that, you know, this guy who works at this store would be recommending this other store. But he explained to him, you know, where it was or whatever. And he's like, listen, you know, go there, check it. I think it's the place for you. So he said he goes there, and it's this, you know, concrete building with, like, a metal door, no signs whatsoever, one car in the yard, and, like, that's it, you know? So he goes, buzzes the door or whatever, gets inside, and he says, the first thing that the guy behind the desk, right, this guy in, like, overalls and no shirt, the first thing he says to him is piss fetish. And he was like, what? And he's like, piss, like, he's like, I have a full bladder. And the guy was like, what the? And he's like, hey, you know, it's all good if that's not the case, right? Like, listen, I know everyone's jaw is on the floor, right? Because I was like, what the hell is this? So the guy says, you know, the guy proceeds to, like, show him around the shop, and then he showed him, like, this hole in the wall thing, right? And he's like, just the glory hole. And he's like, what is that? He's like, well, what you do is you put your particulars, right, in there, in the hole, and someone on the other side, you know, gives you what's the word we're going to use? Some fellatio, right? Let's try and keep it as above brow as we can, right? Someone will work it out on the other side for you. And then he says that he was, stupid enough to ask, well, is it a guy or a girl? And the man says to him, well, did you see any other car in the parking lot? Okay, so I know you're like, what the hell kind of joke is this? It's after hours, okay? But this is the joke. And the guy's whole point in saying this whole joke was that he was trying to tell this woman, listen, miss, there is no way that women want sex just as bad as men, because he does not believe that women are willing to go to that extent. Obviously this porn shop and this glory hole thing, it all exists because there are people who actually do this, right? And he's like, he doesn't believe that women are as equally willing to go to such lengths just to experience, I guess, sexual euphoria, right? And this is the whole thing, right? Oh, Lord. I think nowadays, to be honest with you, right, I do think some of the women are giving the men competition. But either way, I do agree with the comedian overall in his point that the value and the way we value our sex, if you will, it's different. You know what I mean? It is really different. If men valued their parts like we valued ours, they wouldn't be so willing to just stick it in so many holes, if you will. You understand where I'm coming from? On the other hand, I do think that men work just as hard for their money as we do for our reputation as women. And so I would ask men if they don't think that we feel the same way about them always asking for sex as they feel about women always asking for money. Whoa, mind blown, right? Like, think about it, dude. If you hate a woman always asking you for money, how do you think a woman feels like when you always ask about sex? You know what I mean? If we're not friends and I just walk up to you and say, yo, give me $100, you know what I mean? You're gonna look at me like, what? Who? Miss, I don't know you. And to me, that's the same thing when someone offers you a no strings attached situation. For why, as we say, right? Not even like why. For why? What are you bringing to the emotional table? It's to listen, guys. I'm gonna give you a little secret, right? At least, and I can only speak, I guess, to women who have a similar mindset to me, and hopefully, I hope I'm speaking, generally for a wide portion of females, at least those of us who are, aspiring to do something with our lives and not just be a thought, you know what I mean? It really, listen, there's nothing more annoying in the world, right, than a man who wants to sleep with you and contributes nothing to your life. And when I say contributes nothing, I mean, like, not even profitable conversation, okay? Like, you got to be able to at least teach me something. I'm not talking about your dollars per se, but you got to be able to teach me something, man. Tell me something that I don't know. And I swear, I think, like, no strings attached must be for people who, like, aren't very interesting or something, because, like, I don't understand, yeah, sex is great, but again, it's like the icing on the cake. Like, do you eat icing by itself? You shouldn't. It, like, makes you sick. It's too sweet. It's not right. It's meant to go on something. And I think that's how sex is. Like, it's meant to be the ultimate cherry, like, no pun intended, right, on top of this great relationship or friendship or something, right? This emotional connection that you've built with this person. And, to me, like I said, I have a mind and I truly want it to be valued, perhaps even more so than my body. Sex or being sexy, while great, it's not really a competitive edge, because someone somewhere is going to do it different. You understand? They're going to say like 2 more oohs and 5 more ahs. You understand? Like, somebody's going to twist it to the left while somebody else twists it to the right. Like, somebody's going to do it different. And I mean, in my case, I will do better, but different, all right? Different. That's what it's going to be. And a man or woman who only really values you for your sex doesn't truly value you, because someone else's sex and their tricks and whatever else they do is gonna lure them away at some point. You know what I mean? They're gonna want to try something else. we have a saying here, right? You don't take sand to the beach. But I would like to argue that you don't take sand home either. And again, if, the way you twist it and bend it and lift it and do whatever is your only competitive edge, and that's all you are, like another grain of sand on the beach, man. Like, we don't want sand. Nobody takes home sand. Be a freaking seashell, right? Like, it's like the meme that says, you're not a yellow starburst. Don't let anybody treat you like a yellow starburst. You are a freaking pink starburst, man. I don't know why the world hates yellow starburst. Like, that kind of made me sad for yellow starburst. But, you get the point. Like, don't make yourself common. And again, I think we're just selling ourselves short. And that's what the no strings attached situation is. Us accepting defeat, declaring really upfront that it will only be what it is. We fear that it will never be more. And so we declare that from the beginning, that's all it is going to be. And we don't even look for more because we're afraid that the person will never live up to the mark, right? And that's really one of the things that I want to talk about in the next episode, the mark. Okay, what is this? If everyone is no strings attached because they just haven't, found the right one, which I get a lot, or you'll have people who will say, yeah, and I think I mentioned this before, it'll be like, well, let's just see how it goes. And that's like a slick no strings attached thing too, right? Because it's like they're trying to keep a particular distance because at the end of the day, they don't truly either want it to develop into more or they're really not ready for it to develop into more. And so that's why I say, what's the mark? Because these are the same people that claim, oh, well, there's no good people to date, or, they're single because things rough in Nassau. And I mean, I guess it's rough other places too. I don't know. If you're somewhere where you just have like tons of people to date and they're all like really great people, men or women, if you could let me and Tino know, by all means, we'll take a trip, we'll do a show just from there. But I think this is more so a mindset, not just in the Bahamas. I think it's more of a world issue as we deal with things like the inundation of sex in media and things like that, where the way, again, the psychology of the whole thing is just twisted. And I'm trying to figure out what people do actually want, because, even in our group, in our After Hours 242 group, right? We got people single who say they're looking for people, right? But as far as I know, now they could be doing it on the sly, I don't know, right? But as far as I know, no one's like hooking up or actually like dating or saying like, oh, hey, I found this great person in the group who, like we're on the same wavelength. Like, I want to know what the issue is. Why are we all still single? What part of the dream is missing? And I don't mean just to marry someone, because at the end of the day, you never know what it's going to turn into, right? And sometimes it's just a really great relationship and it doesn't lead to marriage, and that's fine. But ultimately, it seems to be really difficult just to find like decent, like-minded people to even date. And I want to know what the issue is. Why are so many quote unquote real singles still real single, if you know what I mean? Like, what's going on, right? I mean, to me, that's the question. So I think we're going to talk about that in the next episode. I'm going to put up, I'm going to do this week, I'm going to put up a survey for you guys, and it's not going to just be on Facebook. And let me tell you why I say that, right? The first polls that we did on Facebook, the response was great and people, answered and everything else. This last poll that we did, tons of people saw it because, like Facebook shows you how many people see it, right? But only a few people answered. And of course, the question was, have you ever agreed to a no strings attached situation? And I'm thinking that people are thinking, like, I guess they think I can see maybe who voted specifically what, and maybe they don't want to answer. I think people want to be kind of like secretive, if you know what I mean. And well, I don't know if I would say secretive. That was a stretch. I apologize. You just want to be private. And I get that, right? Because it's Facebook. I get that. At the same time, I know a lot of you may actually want to kind of have that deeper discussion and maybe, say a few things. So I've been thinking about it. And what I'm thinking about is, for those of you who may want to get in contact with me, but you don't want me to know who you are, don't want to use your Facebook profile, you guys can contact me on Kik, okay? If you don't have Kik, you can download it. It's this app where you can just basically be anyone in the whole friggin' world you want to be, okay? You could be Joe Blow, Joe Grinds, Joe whoever, right? You could be whoever you want. You could be Sally or Lucy, or, you know, you could have on a red wig. Doesn't matter. Whoever you want to be. And you can contact me on Kik. I am SexyVanessa242, okay? That's SexyVanessa242. And so if you have a story you want to share, or a question you want to ask, or, you know, something you want to contribute, but you kind of want to keep it on the low, by all means, you can hit me up on Kik, right? Yeah, because again, like I said, the first polls, there were so many responses. This one, we had so many views, but I just feel like a lot of the people were really, you know, hesitant to maybe admit to having agreed to that sort of situation. And to me, that's just another sign that we know it's not just not ideal. It's not necessarily something that I guess people are, you know, proud of or want to admit that they've, you know, settled for less, which lets me know that I think we know we're settling for less. What I don't think we know is perhaps why. And again, like I said, that concept of kind of knowing what to expect, I think, is a big part of it. And so we'll talk about that more in the future. Like I said, next episode, though, we're going to be talking about that mark. Why are all of us really wonderful single people still really wonderfully single, right? That's what we're after. I bent your ear enough for this episode. Of course, you got to follow us on SoundCloud. Like I said, with the survey, what I'm going to do, hit me up on Kik, and who knows, I might even do some longer surveys, but Lord knows that takes so much time, y'all. I know, right? It takes a lot of time, but we'll see. We'll see what the response is like, right? Like I said, hit us up on SoundCloud, give us a like, give us a follow. You can also check us out on YouTube. Again, those are both After Hours with SexyVanessa or After Hours 242. And, you know, there's a new episode every Sunday night at 11 p.m. Eastern time. That's how we do, okay? Again, check us out on iTunes now as well. That's Apple Podcasts and a myriad of other podcast apps. So look for us, like us, follow us, and of course, join the conversation on Facebook and Twitter at After Hours 242. And yeah, that's actually it for this episode. Again, special thanks to Tino, the producer, and Street King Records. And you know, it's all been brought to you today by Laugh My Ass Off Island Comedy Experience. That's May 20th, guys, okay? Again, major hype in the place. You can check him out on Facebook, MAJAHHYPE, okay? Major hype, incredibly funny guy. I'm so looking forward to that. And of course, I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation. I am SexyVanessa. Shalom until next time.